13. The Grey Whisper opening channel narration amid the noise of day and the silence of the dark night. Where the boundary between reality and imagination begins to fade, there lies Grey Whisper, opening a doorway into this earthly world. Hello, my friends. Welcome to your channel. Tonight, for a few moments, I would like to be a guest in your home, bringing you a mysterious tale from beyond the veil. If you choose to walk this path with us, your likes and comments are more than support. They help this space grow and thrive. And if you have not yet joined our gathering, consider subscribing and activating the notification bell so that we may always remain by your side. Before our story begins, there are things in this world that most people never see. Beings that walk beside humanity unseen. Some serve the light. Some serve darker powers. For centuries, a small number of men and women have sought contact with them through prayer, discipline, and 40 nights of isolation. Many failed. Some lost their minds. A few succeeded. In the world you are about to enter, these beings are known as Moakals. Some are Rahmani Moakals, servants of divine light who guide, protect, and assist those who walk the path of faith. Others are Shaitani Moakals, servants of darkness who deceive, tempt, and seek to lead people astray. To earn the right to meet a Moakal, a seeker must endure a sacred 40-day spiritual retreat. A trial of solitude. A trial of patience. A trial of faith. During those 40 days and nights, the seeker is tested in countless ways. Some tests come in the form of fear, some through desire, some through grief, and some arrive disguised as the people they love most. The circle of protection used during this retreat is known as a mundal. Inside it, the seeker prays, recites sacred invocations, and resists every attempt to break their will. But not everyone who enters the 40 nights returns unchanged. Some leave stronger. Some leave broken. And a few discover truths that alter the course of their lives forever. This is the story of one of them. This is the story of Taha, the last key-keeper of Hell. Prologue. Some destinies begin with a cry, some with a death, and some begin with a secret buried so deep that even time dares not speak its name. There are stories that belong to ordinary people. Stories born, lived, and forgotten beneath the passing years. But there are other stories. Stories that move silently through the shadows of history. Stories hidden from human eyes. Stories whispered among beings who have existed long before mankind first walked the earth. This is one of those stories. A story of an innocent child. A forgotten promise. Ancient powers. And a secret that could alter the fate of worlds. A story that begins on a night unlike any other. Beneath a sky where darkness watched in silence. Beside a river that had witnessed countless mysteries. And beside a child whose destiny had already awakened. Part 1 Destiny. In the first 3 parts of The Secret of the Fig Trees. 13. In Grandfather's garden, we heard Mujtaba recount the remarkable story of his grandfather, Mustafa, a story that changed not only his own life, but also the lives of the generations that followed him. Mustafa was a poor young man who worked for the village Khan. One night, while working in the fields, he encountered a strange creature fleeing from a wolf. In that very moment, a mysterious voice echoed inside his mind and said, "Throw your shovel at the wolf." Without understanding why, Mustafa obeyed the voice and hurled his shovel toward the beast. That single act became the beginning of his journey into an unknown world, the world of the Rahmani Jinn. It was a turning point that transformed his life forever, changing him from a poor and ordinary man into a wealthy and trusted friend of the Rahmani Jinn. As time passed, Mustafa began traveling between the human world and the land of the Rahmani Jinn. Following the orders of their king, and with the help of 2 Rahmani Moakkals named Arzhang and Orang, he purchased lands, gardens, livestock, and houses in the city of Bahadur Khan. Eventually, it was decided that he would move to one of those gardens and make it his new home. Because of this, Mustafa revealed all the secrets he had been carrying to his wife, Talat, from his first encounter with the mysterious creature to his friendship with the Rahmani Jinn and the blessings that had entered their lives. He also told her that a woman from their tribe would soon come to help her and care for her during her pregnancy. But this was only the beginning. For the events waiting ahead would prove far more mysterious and life-changing than Mustafa could ever imagine. Now, let us continue the story. 13. Morning came. After finishing my usual chores, I headed toward the entrance of the village, where Orang was waiting for me. After exchanging greetings, we mounted our horses, and moments later we arrived at the orchard. Just as the king had said, one gate had already been installed within the wall, while another gate stood nearby, waiting to be put in place. We entered through the installed gate and began tending to all the trees in the orchard. Arzhang and his workers were busy building the house. A while later, Karbalai and his workers arrived. It was strange. We could see them, but they could not see us. I walked up and greeted Karbalai, but he continued his work as if I were not there. He could not even see the gate that had already been placed in the wall. That was when I realized that anyone who entered through that gate became invisible to ordinary people. They installed the second gate. That part of the orchard became like paradise. The trees grew before our eyes. Branches came alive. And the orchard became greener and more beautiful with every passing moment. Then it was time to tend to the fig trees. We walked to that section. The trees were heavy with fruit, and sweet, ripe figs hung proudly from their branches. We watered that area as well. Our work was finished, and we went to see ours hang. They had built a beautiful mansion, and the construction was nearly halfway complete. No special conversation passed between us. Orang and I took hold of our horses and left the orchard through our own gate. After that, we entered through the other gate. Karbulai stepped forward. We greeted him and wished him strength in his work. Karbulai said, "Your brother and the workers he brought didn't come today. I could see ours hang and our friends, so a smile appeared on my face." Orang said, "They'll come tomorrow. Today, they had some unfinished business to take care of." Then he continued, "I'm going to prepare lunch for you." Karbulai laughed and said, "My friend, it's nearly noon already. I don't think you'll have food ready before sunset." This time Orang laughed and replied, "The food will be ready within a few minutes." Karbulai clearly didn't believe him and returned to his work. Orang quickly built a fire and began cooking. There were no ingredients and no cooking tools there. Yet every time Orang stretched his hand into the air, ingredients and utensils appeared in his grasp. 2 pots, the same size as the day before, sat over the fire. Rice was cooking in one, and chicken in the other. A few minutes later, he turned to me and said, "Go call Karbulai's workers for lunch." I went and invited them. Karbulai gave a crooked smile, stopped working, and walked with the workers toward the orchard entrance where Orang was waiting. The delicious aroma of food filled the air. Karbulai and the others could hardly believe what they were seeing. They stared in amazement at the dishes arranged on a cloth spread over the ground. Each plate of rice was topped with a piece of chicken. Orang smiled and said, "Please, have your lunch before it gets cold." The workers sat down and began eating. There was more food on the spread than seemed possible. Without anyone noticing, Orang carried the cooking pots through our special gate so that Arshang and our other friends could also eat and rest. Karbulai and his workers ate. They were completely satisfied. And then they returned to work. By then, I had realized that they could not see the building Arshang was constructing. They worked until evening, then finished for the day and returned to their homes. But Arshang and the others worked without rest for 3 days and 3 nights, and the hidden mansion was supposed to be completed by morning. The sun was beginning to set. Large groups of soldiers joined Arshang's team. Orang and I mounted our horses and set off toward the beautiful land of the benevolent Jinn. We arrived at the palace. The king was seated upon his throne, surrounded by many advisors and elders of their realm. It was the first time I had seen the palace so crowded. Orang and I stood silently in a corner. The king, his generals, and the elders seemed to be discussing war and how to prevent an attack from the infernal Jinn. That was when I finally understood why the king kept saying, "Our time is running short." The king's gaze fell upon us. He motioned for us to come forward. Orang and I stepped ahead. First the king, and then the others, returned my greeting with respect. The king said, "Good. Tonight, the hidden mansion will be completed and concealed from human eyes. Tomorrow, the rest of the mansion will be finished before sunset. When you come tomorrow night, we will tell you what must be done next." Tomorrow, with the help of Orang, Arshang, and the others, finished the remaining work. Then, at his signal, the old man brought 2 bags before me. One was green, and the other was blue. The king said, "Tomorrow, take these bags to the orchard. Recite this invocation. There, Orang and Arshang will tell you what must be done and help you complete the task. Just make sure you memorize the words well." He recited the invocation once more. It felt as though the words had been carved directly into my mind. Then he gave us permission to leave. With Orang's help, I picked up the bags. I said my farewells, and we left the palace. Outside, Orang took my hand. A moment later, I was standing in front of my house. I said goodbye to him and entered. The lady came to the door. I greeted her. She returned the greeting. She took the bags from my hands and said, "You go inside. I'll bring the bags in." I took the green bag back from her and said, "You go ahead. I'll follow you." She entered the house. She placed her bag on top of the room. I placed mine beside it. Tullet came out from the other room and greeted me. I returned her greeting. She said, "Dinner is ready. Wash your hands and come." She was standing right beside the bags. Yet she could not see them. Turning to the lady, she said, Would you lay out the tablecloth for us? My back hurts today." The lady nodded and went toward the kitchen. I stepped outside and walked to the water well. I washed my hands and face and returned inside. The dinner cloth had already been spread. I sat down, and we ate together. The lady brought a tray carrying a teapot, glasses, saucers, and a sugar bowl. We drank tea. Later, I stepped outside to relieve myself. A dark shadow leaped from above the latrine into the alley the moment I came out. I saw it, but I blamed it on the darkness and my exhaustion. Afterward, I returned to the house, lay down in bed, and fell asleep. 14. The Secret of the Fig Trees in Grandfather's Garden, Part 2, Section 5. 14. The night was well past midnight. Suddenly, I heard Lady Bano's voice inside my head. She said, "Wake up." I opened my eyes. She continued, "The lower Jinn are outside the house. The house is protected by a barrier, but they may attack at any moment." I quickly rose and hurried toward the doorway of the room. Tullet was asleep and had noticed nothing. Lady Bano was standing beside the door, but she was no longer the woman I saw each day in our home. Before me stood a warrior clad in silver armor, with no veil covering her face. I looked at her carefully, and could hardly believe what I was seeing. She was Queen Bano, the king's wife, and the mother of the very boy whose life I had saved and whose leg I had healed. Embarrassed, I lowered my head and said, "Please forgive me. I did not recognize you because of your veil." Queen Bano replied, "This is not the time for such things. I am going outside to stop the vanguard. You must warn the king and our tribe." I asked, "How?" She raised her hand and pointed to the ring on my finger. Then she stepped outside. A sword rested in her right hand, and a dagger in her left. Nearly 20 shadowy figures surrounded her. Without hesitation, she charged toward them. At that very moment, a voice echoed through my mind once again. "What are you waiting for?" It was Queen Bano's voice. I rubbed the gemstone of my ring and called for the king. While I explained everything to him through my thoughts, I watched Queen Bano fight. She was a warrior beyond compare. With every swing of her sword, she struck one of the lower Jinn, and the creature dissolved into smoke darker than the night itself. Then suddenly, and at their head, and carried a blazing sword in his hand. The lower Jinn recoiled the moment they saw him. But the king's warriors gave them no mercy. With the first assault, the entire vanguard was reduced to smoke. But the battle was not over. The main army of the lower Jinn arrived. The king, Queen Banu, and their warriors drove them out of the courtyard. And the battle continued beyond the house. I ran into the yard. I grabbed my shovel and rushed outside. I was not thinking about my own life. I only wanted to defend the king, Queen Banu, and their people. Suddenly, a gigantic Jinn charged toward me. He raised his sword high above his head. Instinctively, I lifted my shovel in defense. The sword came down, but it struck neither my shovel nor my head. Instead, it collided with another sword, and the blow was deflected. A moment later, another strike landed upon the creature's neck. The Jinn turned into black smoke and vanished. I opened my eyes. Orang stood beside me. His sword was still raised above my head. Arshang stood beside him, his blade spinning through the air. I looked at Orang first, and thanked him with a nod. Then I turned to Arshang, and thanked him in the same way. The king and Queen Banu truly deserved their titles. They fought bravely at the front of their army. A few minutes later, the call to prayer echoed through the air. The lower Jinn fled, and the battle came to an end. The king approached me. For the first time, instead of offering a formal greeting, I saluted him with respect. He smiled and said, "You should prepare yourself and take the bags to the garden." The enemy discovered the location of the tablets, which is why they attacked your home. Once the tablets are placed where they truly belong, they will no longer be able to harm you or your family. I bowed my head respectfully. As I walked toward the room, Queen Banu came with me. At the doorway, she took my hand and said, "Do not worry about Tullet or your child. As long as the king, I, and our tribe remain alive, no one will be able to harm you or your family." I thanked her. Then I picked up the bags and stepped outside. Orang and Arshang were waiting for me. Together with several soldiers, we mounted our horses. A moment later, we stood before the hidden gate of the garden. The world was still wrapped in the gray light before dawn. We waited until daylight fully arrived. As soon as the morning light appeared, Orang said, "Open the green bag." I opened it. He said, "There are 2 stone tablets inside. Take out the larger one." I removed it. Arshang stepped forward carrying a bowl. Inside was a substance that looked like mortar, but it shimmered with an unusual light. He spread it across the back of the tablet. Then he adjusted its direction and handed it to me. After lifting me up, he said, "Recite the words the king taught you and place the tablet above the gate." I recited the sacred words. When I finished, I moved the tablet toward the gateway. Like a magnet, it was drawn forward and firmly attached itself above the entrance. A green light burst from the tablet and the gate, spreading through the air for several moments. Then the gate opened. Arshang lowered me back down. We entered the garden. From there, we made our way to the hidden palace. I removed the second tablet from the bag. Once again, Arshang spread the shining mortar across its back and adjusted its position. Then he lifted me high into the air. The palace entrance towered above us. It felt as though we were flying between earth and sky. When we reached the top, I recited the sacred words once more. I brought the tablet closer to the entrance. The same thing happened again. The tablet was drawn forward like a magnet. A green light spread across the air, and the gate slowly opened. Arshang descended and gently set me upon the ground. I entered first. Orang and Arshang followed behind me. Inside the palace, everything looked exactly like the king's palace. The walls, the delicate plasterwork, the magnificent mirror decorations, the golden statues, even the doors that opened from the grand hall into various chambers. Everything stood precisely where it did in the king's palace. Orang took the blue bag from my hands and placed it inside one of the rooms. Then he said, "When the second mansion is completed, this tablet will be placed above its entrance as well." We left the palace. The gates closed behind us. Guards immediately took their positions around the palace and at its entrance. Arshang and his workers exited through the hidden gate, entered through the public gate, and returned to the mansion under construction to continue their work. Orang and I did the same. About an hour later, Karbali Hossein and his workers arrived. They also began their work. I was extremely tired that day. Orang came to me and said, "It would be best for you to return home and rest until sunset." I nodded in agreement. We left the garden. since Orang intended to return immediately. We did not use the horses this time. He took my hand. A moment later, I was standing in front of my house. Orang said goodbye and departed. I entered the house. I was utterly exhausted. I rested my head upon a pillow and thought about everything that had happened. And before I even realized it, I drifted into sleep. Dear friends, tonight's tale comes to an end here. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Your thoughts, interpretations, and reflections are always welcome and help this path grow stronger. Until we meet again with another tale, between the noise of day and the silence of the dark night, may light guide your path. Headphone wishing you a peaceful night ahead. Leave the whispers to us. Good night.